I still can't quite believe that we will only ever know more about how to actually buy our first home when we're actually ready to buy our first home. It seems kind of backwards to me. With hardly any lessons on the property buying journey in schools, I'm joined with Jaz Dhaliwal, a property solicitor, to discuss all the different steps associated with buying your very first home. This conversation is going to be packed with lots of tips and information, so make sure you grab a pen and paper. Hi Jaz, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for this show. I wish I was given this opportunity as well at that young age as well. So this is so good. So thank you so much for doing all this.
No, you're welcome. For those listening, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I am a conveyancing solicitor. So essentially you would instruct me when you're buying, selling, refinancing. I've been doing it for about 10 odd years.
Wow. You don't look old enough to be doing it for 10 years.
Thank you. I feel it. I do feel it. I have two little ones that keep me on my toes. But yeah, and I come from a family that invest in property,
Yes.
so it's only natural that I went into conveyancing. But there's so many people out there that come to me and they're like, they don't know what a deposit is, what an exchange is, like what the process is. So yes, so excited to share this.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think with the property buying journey, we've actually covered quite a lot of episodes about how to buy a property, right? But I don't think we've ever really gone down into the nitty gritty of the actual steps, because again, we know there's more than just looking at a property and just putting cash down. It's a lot longer than that. There's a lot of legal work required behind the scenes, which you obviously are aware of. So I'm very excited to chat to you today. So I guess to kickstart things off, I've actually got two quick fire questions just to warm you into the hot seat today on the podcast. So my very first question is, what's been your greatest financial achievement?
So a couple of years ago, invested in a property all by myself.
Wow.
So I could have asked mum, dad, and all of those people that are already in property. And I was just like, no, you know what? I'm going to do this all by myself. Found myself a deal sourcer. Couldn't do it around local because it's so expensive.
Yes.
So I invested up north and I still have that property and it's like a baby to me.
Wow.
And there is times where I'm like, oh, shall I let it go? And I'm like, no, I can't. That is my proud moment.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad I did it. And I feel like, why did I not do it earlier? Because I'm in that field, but I guess it's just the risk and taking that first step really, isn't it?
Yes. And the thing is, I always mention on the podcast, buying a property isn't a light decision. It's not like you just going to buy a dress on ASOS, right?
Absolutely.
It's actually you're stopping, you actually have a lot of capital you have to put down. And obviously as a woman, you buying your own investment property is incredible. Is it an investment that you're proud of and has it done well over time?
It has, and I can't wait till the children grow up and they kind of see how that happened as well. Right now they're a bit young, but I want to expose them more to this is how you can invest too. So I'm so glad I did it, and yeah.
Very proud. We're definitely going to chat after this podcast. I feel like there's so much I want to learn from you. But I guess secondly is, just to get to know you a little bit better, is what's one guilty pleasure you like to spend your money on?
I think if you asked me a few years ago, I would have been shopping, 100%. But I feel like once you have children, it's all about creating memories. So I think name it, holidays, water park, theme parks, those kind of things.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a guilty pleasure because I get happy through their eyes.
Yes.
So if they're happy, I'm happy. And, I know they say money can't buy happiness, but for a child it can.
Yeah, I mean, it does for me as well.
Right? So, yeah, I guess any spare moment, I'm booking something for her or him.
Yeah, oh, that's so cute. I'm the same. If I had to spend a large amount of money on something, it would be an experience. And everyone knows on the podcast, I love to travel. So it would be a very big travel trip. On my list next is probably Sri Lanka or back to Central America.
Nice.
And yeah, I think we all work so hard for our money that we should be able to enjoy it at the same time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to learn to, what is it, work hard, play hard kind of thing. That situation. And even my children see how much I work, but I don't want them to feel like that's all you do when you grow up. You've got to learn to invest, but also spend and live a bit of freedom as well.
No, I agree. Oh, I love those answers. And I guess obviously, like I mentioned, we're here to discuss the property buying journey. So for those that haven't yet bought their property, do you mind explaining the different steps associated with buying their very first home?
Yeah, sure. So I guess anyone that is looking to purchase a property, I think their first port of call would be to speak to a mortgage broker.
Yeah.
To see how much you are allowed to borrow from the bank, how many savings they have. And they kind of break down and be right, okay, this is how much you can borrow. So I think the guide price of a purchase price should be, I don't know, X amount.
Yes.
And then once you've got that, then you can start looking at locations, you know, whether it's something close to you, whether it's up north. Once you do find something, you're there to make an offer. So make your offer. Best of luck.
Yeah.
And then after that, then you would instruct a solicitor, really. And that's when I would come into play. We would do all the legals. Besides that, you will also instruct a surveyor.
Okay.
So it's not compulsory, but I do always advise my clients, especially like first-time buyers who are just not familiar with the property, and just be like, you know, it'd be good for you to go into the property and, you know, if there's any cracks, any subsidence, or, you know, the electrics have gone off. Like recently I did have a client that said to me, Jaz, I don't want to because the lender went in and they valued it. But all they're doing is looking at the property and be like, yeah, you know, this is how much I'd want to secure on. So whereas the surveyor will just go in a bit more deeper. So this particular client instructed a home buyer surveyor and realised that the electrics weren't working, and that's £4,000 down already. So he went back to the estate agent and negotiated on that price, and that purchase price came down by £4,000. Now, had he not done that, it's property sold as seen.
Yes.
Right? So are you going to incur that expense after the completion? Of course you are. You can't come back to me or the agent and be like, my electrics aren't working.
Yeah.
That's something for you to kind of figure out during the whole process, really. And then, the legals takes about 4 to 6 weeks. And there's a reason for that. There's like a lot of information that we pick up on, due diligence, make sure it's the right property for you. Sometimes I have investors come to me that say, Jaz, I want to do a side extension, rear extension. But although they need to get permission from the council, I think sometimes investors aren't aware there's like covenants on the title.
Okay.
And what that essentially means is sometimes when you have covenants, you can't actually extend the property because it's just one of those rules that are part of the property, really. So the whole process takes about 4 to 6 weeks. And then, yes, you should be getting the keys.
Amazing.
And then your payments start.
Yeah. That's the big point that most people don't ever mention, do they? It's like, now you're tied up to your mortgage for like 30 to 40 years. But it's really useful to know those different steps, especially the whole legal side of things.
Yeah.
Because, last summer I was looking at potentially buying my very first property, spoke to a mortgage advisor, and they were like, okay, you can borrow X amount.
Yeah.
Which, from the amount I could borrow, I was like, you know what? I'm not interested in leaving my mother's house just yet.
Yeah.
Just because of the budget just didn't put me into a place where I wanted to live as a single person. And so, I think it's really important that you do speak to a mortgage advisor to see what can you afford to borrow. Because I think some people go into a mindset that, just because I'm earning, let's say 50k and the bank might automatically give me 4.5 times that. And actually they look at your debts, your loans, your savings. So there's so much more that goes into it. And then, even if you are in a fortunate position where you're like, okay, I'm happy with this budget, I found my home, like you mentioned, you now need to instruct a solicitor or conveyancer to help you, again, mitigate the risks of buying a property. Would you agree?
Absolutely. It never stops, really, to be honest. I think people think once you make the offer, we're all good to go, but there is like still a whole hurdle, so to speak, really, to go through as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess, obviously, when we're talking about instructing a conveyancer or a solicitor to bring them into the property buying journey, a lot of people are probably assuming, that's another cost associated. But why should people maybe consider looking to bring on a conveyancer and a solicitor?
Yeah, I think firstly you have to. Especially like when you're buying with a mortgage, there's no lender out there that's not going to allow you to do it without a solicitor, to be honest, because the lender wants to be protected.
Yes.
Land registry obviously want to see that, ID verifications and all of that has been carried out as well. So it is just part of the process, really. It's just like going to the bank. You'd go to the bank to borrow money. Yeah. You instruct a solicitor. It's just... It is what it is, I suppose,
And obviously, buying a property is not cheap, right? No. And so it's really important that people listening to the podcast today are aware of the different costs associated with buying a property. So would you mind just giving us like maybe a brief breakdown as to the different costs associated?
So I'll talk about my costs, really. So if a client was to come to me and say, Jaz, I'm a first-time buyer, it's less than 500,000 and I'm buying with a lender called Barclays, for example, it would be something like 1,500 plus VAT. That would cover their searches, it would cover their legals, their ID check. Now, that price would only go higher if the client said it's through a bridge, or it's a limited company we're buying through, or then they say it's a leasehold transaction. And essentially when it's a leasehold, there's just that much more work involved. I'm looking at service charge, I'm looking at ground rent, lease terms. So of course then the price goes a little bit higher as well.
Yeah, so it's a lot to kind of consider. But I guess obviously because you have experience with loads of people buying properties, what do you think people should be looking for when they're actually looking for their dream home? Because you mentioned like through a bridge or freehold, leasehold. Like, what do you think people should be looking for when they actually are looking for their dream home?
I think it kind of depends what the end goal is, really. You know, are you looking to, is it like a forever home, or is it like a rental thing, or is it a flip? Like, what do you plan to do with that kind of money? So I guess if it's like someone like me, like I looked into a rental one just because I just wanted a bit of extra income.
Yeah.
I don't have the time or the fluff to look around builders. I just don't have the time, really.
Yeah.
So that's essentially it. But of course, if you have the time, it just kind of depends what you're after. There's HMO, there's service accommodation, there's lease options.
Yeah.
There's like so many different variable factors. It just depends what you want. Do you want like a lump sum, which essentially would be like flipping a property because you're going to do a refurb, or is it like a bit of income you want and it just staggers and over time that property accumulates?
Yeah, no, that's really helpful to know, because for me, I was looking for my very first property. In an ideal world, I would have loved a freehold property, but my budget didn't allow to that, so I was restricted to looking at flats, which meant leasehold, which then meant service charge and ground rent, and then again your costs quickly rack up. So guys, if you are looking for your very first home, I think it's really important that you do your research into the different costs associated with homes, because again, we're not taught this in school or university, and it's only when you speak to a mortgage advisor and they're like, oh yeah, you actually need to think of this, this and this, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe a home isn't what I can afford to do right now. So I think again, it's really important to weigh up your different options.
Yeah, absolutely. Like even like just with like lease terms as well, I think sometimes on the market you'd see like a property is like dead cheap because it has 50 years of lease.
And I've seen a lot of that.
Right, and not knowing that no lender is going to lend to you firstly, and if they are, like they want you to extend that lease, and extending that lease to, I don't know, 99 years, 990 years, that's going to cost like put a whole load of zeros on that.
And I did speak to my mortgage advisor, I think earlier this year actually, because I did see a property that had, I think, 90 years left on the lease. And yeah, if I wanted to extend it, it was going to be a big fat chunk of change that I don't have sitting in the bank account. So yeah, I think again, that's another thing you need to look out for, guys, especially if you have a habit like me, who likes scrolling through Rightmove when they're bored. So yeah, so it's really good to look out for that. And I guess obviously there's lots of first time buyers that will be listening to the podcast today. What are some common mistakes people should avoid when looking to purchase their very first home?
I think source of funds seems to be like a really big issue that crops up on a legal perspective, really. Clients think that if they have 6 months bank statements in a savers account, that's enough for a solicitor. Firstly, it's not. I need to understand how you've accumulated that money. So if you've like sold a car, make sure you keep that receipt, and you don't say to me, I've destroyed it and I don't know where it is and it came in cash. And like, how am I going to justify that? How am I going to explain that to the lender, and compliance issues and everything like that? So that would be like my number one. Same on the source of funds. Again, if it's going to be gifted monies, let your solicitor know on the outset, because that's probably going to be additional costs with some solicitors, because they're looking into ID checks with the donor. They need to go through their bank statements and everything like that. So sometimes there's like a lot of chop and change, and the client's like, I'm going to fund the whole thing, and then mid-transaction, they're like, no, I don't think I can. I need a donor. And then, you know, you need to explain that to the lender as well. So I guess the more frank you are with your solicitor from the get-go, even like you saying you want to do a side extension, just let them know what your intentions are. Communicate like they're like your best friend, really. And just tell them everything.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I think sometimes as well, some sources of funds can be gained from other purposes and activities, and obviously because we are buying a property and we're borrowing money from the bank, there's a lot of things that just aren't going to cut it, you know. And I'm keen to know, just because for me, I'm a business owner, and there's probably loads of other business owners that want to maybe buy their first property in the future. What would you say to them that are looking to buy their first property? Is like receipts, and I guess
That'd be like a limited company, you mean?
Yeah, and or sole trader as well.
Yeah, so what we would look for is the last 3 years tax returns.
Okay.
Obviously, I appreciate some might be newbies in the business, so whatever recent account that your accountant has prepared, most recent letter from the accountant to just say, look, this is how much the income is looking at, or this is how much they foresee. Just like as much information, have your accountant on direct dial for your solicitor, really, and just be like, look, this is my accountant's details, ask them what you want. So at least like then I have direct contact, because I can appreciate sometimes I'm going to ask for so much information, like a director's loan agreement, and everyone's like, what's that?
I wouldn't know what that is.
Yeah, exactly that. So sometimes it's just easier for me to speak to the accountant, and they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's done. So it kind of removes you, and you know, you're not hassling the accountant or understanding, you know, sometimes I don't know how much it helps to know that information when it's probably not going to help, really. It's just between the accountant and the solicitor, really.
I'm glad you broke that down, because I think when you are a business owner sometimes, I think we forget how important like receipts are, proof of income are, our tax our tax returns, everything. And I think again it's really important, guys, if you are looking to buy property in the future, you remember the sole importance of that, because again banks need that proof, right?
So anything that you think is going to be cash, make sure you have that receipt. Like sometimes I appreciate, like if you've sold a house, of course there's going to be a completion statement from the solicitor, so that's like dead easy to provide. But, you know, saying something like, my grandma transferred £5,000 cash into the bank and I've got it now. No. No.
So what would someone do in that situation then?
I wouldn't take it on.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know how other solicitors would take it. For me, it's kind of like a roadblock, because I don't know how far I can go with that, really. And then how did the grandma accumulate it? It's just like... Yeah.
No, I can imagine. I think, just make it easier for your solicitors, guys. And I guess, obviously, you have probably seen so many home purchases take place over the last 10 years. What are some legal red flags buyers should watch out for in their property contracts?
So always make sure when you go to the property, you know exactly the items you are buying.
Okay.
So always make a note of that. Ask them, you know, even the silliest of questions, like, is a fridge included, freezer included, the light bulbs? Like, I've had clients say to me, Jaz, the light bulbs are supposed to be included. And I've come home and they've literally taken the light bulbs out. And you're like, oh my goodness, like... that opens a whole can of worms, but I don't know whether it's then worth it with the litigation solicitor, because that's who they'll have to instruct and everything like that adds on cost. But essentially, just try and understand what is included in that contents form, really. I think that seems to be a bit of a bummer when it comes to that side of things. I've had some clients just buy property and put an offer in and never been to the property. So they don't know there's a river nearby, it's going to cause flood issues. They haven't checked out building insurance. So I've had to then go back and be like, there's a river nearby and it has been flooded previously. And he's like, I've never been to the property.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So you do have those kind of investors as well. So we have to alert them and just make sure that any kind of building insurance they do have, they are aware that it has been flooded. Make sure that they are willing to insure it today in today's market as well. That's what I can think of at the moment.
And now that you've said that, what part of the property buying process can you actually step out? Like, is there a stage where you're too late to step out of the buying a property?
As long as you haven't exchanged contracts.
Okay.
So the moment you exchange contracts, basically what you're doing is putting 10% down and saying, I'm legally bound to buy this property on such and such date.
Okay.
And should you not do that, then the other side can penalise you for costs, penalties, interest. Like, it would just be mad, really. But any time before then, like, you want to inspect the property, like, every couple of weeks, bring a builder in, whatever the situation, dot the T's, cross the I's, so to speak, do that. Like, don't feel like, oh, you know, I went there at time of offer, I can't go back again.
Yeah.
Like, there is no such thing as that. Like, go back to the property if it assures you to just double check, I don't know, like the electrics, for example.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I think I know what my generation is like sometimes, and we can sometimes be too scared to speak up. So I feel like some people might have got to the property that they've wanted to buy, put an offer in, they've had so many conversations with solicitors, with the other parties selling, and then they're like, oh, it's too late for me to back out. Guys, you are spending thousands on this property. So I'm glad that you shared that. You know, it's actually never too late until you've exchanged contracts. So I'm glad we touched on that today.
Absolutely. Same for like the purchase price. That can forever change throughout the transaction. So don't think like you've put like, I don't know, £100,000 that you have to pay £100,000. If you suddenly think there's crack in the property and you're going to have to bring a builder in to surface that, how much is that going to cost you?
Yeah.
I don't know, like let's put a number on it, £3,000. Go back to the agent and be like, either the seller fixes it before exchange or cut my price down by £3,000. So yeah, like definitely, yeah, speak up.
This is why I'm glad I got you on, because again, that's something I didn't personally know. I didn't know if it was ever going to be too late to step out. I mean, I never got to the point of putting in an offer when I did view properties, but I did start looking. I did have conversations with estate agents and things, and yeah, it just seems like a very formal process. So you do, you know, you get maybe a bit scared to like speak up when you're like, actually, this isn't the one for me. So thank you for that. And I guess obviously, like I mentioned, lots of people are looking to purchase their very first home in the future. I think it's a big goal for a lot of people. So what's one piece of advice you wish every home buyer knew before they started the property process?
Listen to many podcasts similar to this, read a lot, just know the situations that can arise, learn from other people's mistakes, go to networking events, ask them, have you ever had a situation where you had any regrets when you purchased a property? And something might click and be like, oh yeah, you know, I didn't check that with my property. So I think the more you speak about it, the more you talk about it, the more everyone knows exactly what you're doing, the more information suddenly is going to be like retained there. And when it comes to your turn, you're going to be like, right, okay, I know X, Y, and Z. And you're not going in there blindfolded thinking, well, I guess I just have to purchase it because, you know, I like the way the living room looks. Like there's got to be like more to it, really.
Yeah, that's really handy actually. Networking events are very underrated. I think now in the property buying space there are so many networking events. So guys, all it takes is like a simple like Eventbrite search being like property event London, property event Birmingham, Bristol, and you'll find something. And so yeah, I feel like don't be too scared to ask the questions when they need to be asked. And I guess to round up the conversation today, if you had to give 3 final tips for anyone looking to purchase their very first home this year, what tips would you share?
Ooh. I guess with a conveyancing solicitor, always check what their capacity is, check their fixed fees, make sure that you don't find out later down the time, you know, they've got any hidden costs and you're not alarmed, because everything adds up really, essentially speaking. When it comes to the mortgage broker, make sure they're fully aware of any like deposit monies that are going to come up. Sometimes I do have like agents bully clients and be like, you have to choose our mortgage broker.
Yes.
And that is not the case.
I've had that a couple of times with estate agents,
Oh gosh, okay. So that's not the case at all. You choose whoever you like, darling. Like you are paying for that service. Like don't go ahead with like whatever the agent says. And visit the property. Visit it with a member of your family that's probably invested, or a builder. Like take someone in with you. Don't just go alone and just think, you know what, I'm just going to do this by myself. There is definitely going to be someone around you in your circle that you can just be like, right, mom, dad, or whoever, like, can you come with me? And you just never know. They may see something that you haven't seen, and that always helps.
And it's hard, isn't it? Because it's for a lot of young people, when they're looking to buy property, we just look at aesthetics, right? I remember me and my mum went to go see a really nice house actually that I really wanted to purchase. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. And then my mum pulled me aside away from the estate agent. She was like, Ola, the living room is not big enough for you to fit a desk in. So where will you be working from home? The bedroom is half the size of your current bedroom. So will you be comfortable living in like literally a bed that's less than double size? And you know what? Sometimes you need someone that's going to bring you back down to earth, because you can get really excited by the squeaky cleanness and modernisation of these properties. And actually, there's so much more to buying a property than how it looks, isn't there?
Absolutely. And use that time to negotiate with the other side as well. So, you know, if you have seen 5 properties, don't feel like, oh, you know what, I have to choose. Just throw in offers and see where it lands you. You just never know.
Yeah. And final tip I'd say is that there's no rush. I think the only people that put a rush on us is us, right? And I remember after looking at the properties with my mum last year, my mum was just like, can I just ask why you're in a rush to buy a property? And I was like, oh, because I just want to buy. And she's like, but I'm not kicking you out the house. So like maybe let's sit down, reevaluate budget, reevaluate if you feel comfortable with the amount that will be leaving your bank account every month, which I wasn't. So yeah, I think there's just no rush as well, and take your time. Because I think, when you have the goal in mind to move out, you just start looking at properties and then you just feel like you have to buy within a month. And actually, like we mentioned, so many thousands go into that property purchase. Your mortgage is going to last you 30, 40 years, if not longer. So I think there's so much to consider, isn't there?
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better.
Well, thank you so much, Jaz, for joining me on the podcast today. It's been such a good conversation.
Thank you.
And I hope you've enjoyed yourself as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.